It's How I Make Money with Andy Beadle. This week, our episode of the How I Make Money podcast features Katie Lester and Schuyler Somers, based out of Lynchburg, Virginia. They are in the event space, and they run A Little Party Events. You can find them at alittlepartyevents.com, spelled exactly like it sounds. Really excited to have you guys on. This is sort of uncanny. So last week, we interviewed a couple who run a business consultancy up in the New Jersey area, and it was our first tandem interview. Now we're stacking them up. We've got two business partners on again. I love the dynamic because you ask one question and then get to watch two people kind of go, well, wait a minute, what do we think? Well, what do I think? So it makes for an awesome discussion. I'm excited, and we're here. Everybody's in Virginia. I know y'all are based out of Lynchburg in Central Virginia, which is, that region, has really grown. I've lived here for 23, 25 years, and Lynchburg has just taken off, just so much going on there. It's a really exciting community.
I love watching it.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, so I know that people, obviously we come on the show, we talk about how people's businesses work. I think people inherently understand that events like weddings and big parties are cool and fun to go to. I don't think anybody who's not in the business understands what an epic logistical challenge it is to have even the most basic event come off. So tell us a little bit about how you both got started in this, kind of your background. I assume you're friends working on not being friends now that you're business partners. I'm kidding. But yeah, tell us a little bit about how you got in the space and what, kind of what your day-to-day work is like when things are normal. And then we'll start talking about how you all survived COVID.
Sounds like a plan. So Schuyler and I both started in the wedding industry, actually in kind of the catering field. And eventually transitioned into venue management, and in between picked up any odd jobs that would help increase our experience. We have always had kind of a passion for what we do, a calling, I guess, in essence. So in our younger years, we had a lot of drive to gather as much knowledge, because as a wedding coordinator, one of the first things you realize that sets you apart from other people in the industry is that you have to be well-versed in a lot of areas.
Right.
The DJ needs to focus on the music and the things he needs to pull that music off. The florist, the flowers, what's in season, how are we hanging this? But as a wedding planner, you have to know a little bit about everybody and also how to fix it on the day of. So One of the things that we would do in our early days is just kind of pick up any odd jobs or helping hands or internships that we could to just kind of deepen our field of knowledge. But catering was a real passion, and then venue coordination and management is sort of where we landed in our mid-20s and helped spark A Little Party.
Well, so talk a little bit about that. I think catering is something that people inherently understand and are very glad they don't have to do when they're putting an event together. Right? Like, I got to feed 50 people. That takes a special kind of masochism to do yourself. But talk a little bit, when you talk about venue management, to me, the thing about the event space that's so unique is when people are in the kind of role that y'all are in, right, you kind of have the same position as what I would call kind of a general contractor and designer on building a home, except you can't be late, right? You can't be like, the cups didn't show up, so we're not going to have a party this week. We're going to do it next week. Yeah. So talk a little bit when you say venue management. Yeah. When you say venue management, what do you mean by that, and how do you guys? I mean, really, how does the work go such that you're able to pull all this stuff off, on a fixed hard date, while managing so many different elements of a job?
So when we were doing more on the venue management side, it kind of presents a different role than a wedding planner, I would say. As a venue manager, you offer the space, you make sure tables and chairs are set. Every venue kind of has different levels of commitment within their packages. But both of us actually met when Katie's family owned West Manor, and I was one of the wedding planners there. And that was, I guess we met more than that. That was like 13 years ago.
A long time.
Anyway. And
we're older than we think.
So we met in that atmosphere of both of us kind of playing both of those roles, and being able to see the divide and how, what a wedding planner does versus what an event manager does are two very different things. And I think as we developed past, working at West Manor, we both went and did some other things, other venue management roles and things at other places, and came back together knowing that the wedding planning is really where our passions lie.
Sure.
I personally love a from scratch wedding. I love doing a backyard. I need power. I need lights. I need parking. I need to know flat ground. Like, I love all of those logistics.
Right.
And I think, being an event manager, you really see one venue over and over and over. And you see, what works and what doesn't. And you see, what a bottleneck does to an event. And you see layout logistics. But when you're a wedding and event planner versus a venue manager, you really see this on a whole different realm. Like a venue generally comes with, at least lights and power. It hopefully comes with a bathroom too and a roof, Right. But when you're handed a field, it's a whole different mindset.
That is super interesting. Well, talk a little bit about, because one of the things we like to focus on is sort of how people's businesses work. And I think it's easy to instinctively understand and misunderstand wedding planning because there's plenty of that on TV and, all those ideas and certainly people, a lot of people have kind of been through the process. But when you're dealing with a couple, who are going to become a family and you've got all the families involved and all that, sort of what's your process? How do you guys kind of take that in and figure out budget and what you can get and all of that? I mean, it sounds to me to be, especially like you say, I love a from scratch wedding, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, I would like to every wedding to be the same. That'd be great, every time. So how do you, talk about your process and how you guys, I mean, obviously you got to make money doing it. How do you figure all of that out when you start working with a couple?
I think it's getting to know your client and their priorities. One of our first questions to our client is, what are your top 3 priorities? And I think that there's a level of, a relationship with a client that you can be real with them about what their expectations are, what their dream is, and where reality sits between those two things. And being able to kind of, set them on this yellow brick road of getting to where they should be. Because I do think a lot of people, Pinterest specifically gives this idea of what a wedding could look like, but you're seeing like this much of what a wedding can look like. And most of those pictures are honestly styled shoots that you can't do on mass production. And so, as a wedding planner, it does require you to really have that relationship with the client from the get-go and saying, okay, you want A, B, and C. Let's do A here, B here, and C here. Let's talk about what the wow factor is going to be and focus that budget and align it to their priorities.
I love that.
Creating systems.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I apologize. I think creating systems is also really important for our success.
Definitely.
And we were able to do that working together at one venue back when our family had West Manor, and Schuyler and I were executing, from one platform week in and week out. So when we left that and we started to transition that into backyards, ballrooms, barns, tents, etc., we had enough experience doing it over and over and over here in one place that we felt like, okay, let's transition some of these systems, but refine them for a backyard or a ballroom. So I think one of the things that makes doing our job easier on us, because it certainly can be a very stressful job when you're trying to execute people's most important days ever and remember a lot of details and also have, an educated background. But I think that those logistics help create systems for us. So when we sit down for a meeting, we know what we're going to tackle, what we're going to go through, and we just break it down. So by the time we leave, the client is comfortable, feels reassured, we've answered questions. But systems, I think, in any business are going to create or lead to long-term success. So I think that's one of the things that helps.
100%. And we're always analyzing our systems,
Always.
In off season, that's what we do. We sit down, we look at our systems, we tweak
What
them. What
works?
works, what doesn't work. We
Right.
talk to our
Yep.
team. We have an incredible team of planners and assistants that we have
Amazing.
a very open door policy of like, let's talk about, you know, a 360 review process and how this all worked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that idea of having systems and processes, especially, yeah, I hadn't really thought about how significant it is for you two to work together in the same, work different events in the same environment over and over again, where it's like the chairs are always stored in the same place, tables, but here are the configurations we do, and you port that over and go, okay, here's totally just making stuff up at this point, but you know, but like, here's what a backyard wedding looks like. Here's what a wedding, you know, at this kind of venue looks like. Here's what a wedding out in the middle of nowhere looks like, that kind of thing. And have that stuff brought down to
Still
a
need
process.
to store the chairs
Right.
at each one, right?
I thought you guys don't just have them in your basement. I just assumed you just had a bunch of chairs in your basement.
No, not anymore.
Yeah, and I think,
But I think too, one of
yeah.
the things that
Yeah, go ahead.
one of the things that Schuyler and I strive to do when you're in this particular industry is
Mhm.
the systems and the business component help with the success of our business. However, it's a very personalized job. So the other thing that we have to be good at doing is taking those systems, but not making it feel like a bride is
Right.
bride number 76. Grab your ticket, get your wedding, go. You know, we really want to stop and pause and say, no. What is it that this couple wants? What's important to them, their family? What are some personal aspects that will make all of the guests leave going, oh my God, that was so them? And
Right.
not just, okay, this is what works because that's what works in the business. So we
Mhm.
have to kind of play both logistical person and fairy godmother dream maker.
Right.
And combining those two can be tricky sometimes, but
I get it.
something we really love to do.
Well, and it sounds to me, I think this whole idea of starting with priorities, you know, that's so important. You know, we have this 6-day side hustle, you know, take a side hustle and turn it into a business challenge. And people go through that. And one of the things we say early on, in addition to having systems in the form of what we call a minimum viable product, is, you know, you've got to know what your audience wants. What problem are you solving? And I think when you look at very personal times in people's lives, so that's, you know, getting married, buying a house, having a child, going to college, you know, retirement, all these kind of really big items that are also expensive. I love that you start out sitting down because what are your priorities? And you would think a wedding would have a pretty discrete set of priorities, but that's not true at all, right? I mean, I got remarried a few years ago, and I was talking to my wife, and she's like, "Oh, what do you want for the wedding?" I said, "I only care about one thing, is we throw an amazing party. I want people to be done with that evening and go, wow." And other than that, I don't care. Yeah. But that's a priority, right? Because then all the questions become, okay, what counts as an amazing party to you? And I think you can do that. And I think you can say, oh, I don't know, you know, it's when my daughter got married, you know, she'd always wanted to be married at the beach. So we hied ourselves out to the Outer Banks and rented a bunch of houses and had a bunch of people down and did that. But that becomes a real different event because you've got all those logistics. So what are the kinds of, what are the priorities you hear a lot when people are thinking about putting together a wedding, and how did that influence your planning? Yeah.
I think, you know, being in the Blue Ridge Mountains, I think a lot of people come with a priority of seeing the mountains and having some outdoor aspect to their wedding day.
Good
Especially
pictures.
these days, good pictures are definitely an often occurred top priority. You know, pictures are the only thing you walk away with from the wedding. You know, the cake gets eaten, food gets eaten, dress is dirty, flowers are gone, you know, and the pictures and the video is really what, you know, you look back at to remember that day, because it does go so fast. I mean, as you know, most people know, it's a wedding, you know, you think it's going to be a long day, and it is a long day in the moment, but it goes so fast. So other priorities, you know, everybody kind of is different here. Some people would say, you know, my dress, my hair, and my makeup are like really, really important to me. Some people are like, I want a party, I want an open bar, I want a band, and I want great food.
Right.
Other people are like, I am a hard foodie. I want a plated 5-course meal. I want, you know, and then some people are like all about design. I want incredible flowers. I want lights. I want a vibe in a room that speaks my personality. And so, all of those things will really help us throughout the process kind of realign a focus at times. When they're stressed about certain little things, we can come back to those priorities to help kind of talk through things with them and where we want to land.
It helps us too when we're making vendor recommendations that we
Absolutely.
don't steer them one way when we know this is the way that they want to go. And if we have a client, we have certain packages that we offer so that we know exactly what services we're providing versus, because as a wedding planner, I'm sure you can imagine like how much do you do versus how little do you do. So we have packages that dictate that. But in some of those packages, budget is part of our discussion. And so when we're sitting down with a client and we're going through the budget, we're looking at what those top priorities are. And if too much finance is being put on something that is not in that top priority, but not enough is being put in, for that awesome band, then we may reevaluate and use those examples as reasoning behind this. When we first sat down, you mentioned this was really important to you. So it helps us too in sending them to the right people to help make those things happen. Schuyler and I are not big DIYers. We are really big into outsourcing to professionals who know how to do their job. So we like to link our clients up with people who are going to help kind of rock it out that day.
So how do you guys get paid? Is it a fixed fee for planning depending on the size and scope of the wedding, right? Obviously, I remember when my daughter was in the business up in DC, and she was talking about just, when families in the Indian community come together and get married, it's like, this is an epic multi-day celebration. And she's like, it's I mean, there's awesome, but it's grueling, right? I mean, that's three days of being on. Yeah.
We started in the DC area, and we did a lot of Indian weddings, and they were multi-day. And you have to understand their cultures too. Here in Central Virginia, we're a little less multicultural than the DC, Northern Virginia market, but that doesn't mean we aren't. And so if we're sitting down with a Jewish couple, we need to know not only about a huppah, but the ketubah and, all sorts of other elements that make our clients also understand we're professional, we're well-versed, and we're sensitive to what your needs are on your wedding day. We know what's important, but you're right. They can certainly take up time. Our pay structure,
it's a flat rate pay structure.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
So we have like a ceremony only option, a reception only option, a coordination package, a partial planning package, and a full planning package. And so our initial consultation or phone call meeting, whatever it may be with a client, we'll really try to figure out what their goal is within that package so that we can tell them which one they would align to. The full service planning is kind of a whole new bracket because it does require a lot of customization and budget conversation and that kind of thing. So, someone comes to you with a $10,000 total budget. I'm going to say, not that we do $10,000 weddings, but if they come to you with a lower budget, you may say it would not behoove you to go with a full service planning package because you want to set them up for success, know?
We want to take all the money and we can't have any money for the wedding.
Exactly. And that being said, I think, majority of what we do within our packages is the wedding day coordination package and the partial planning package. And we definitely do full planning. We do about 115 weddings a year over the last few years. And so, the majority of those are those two packages that I mentioned.
Now, you guys do realize there's only 52 weeks in a year, right?
Oh, yeah. We have an incredible team.
We've got a great team. But one of the things we were fortunate enough to be able to do early on in our industry is create relationships, not only with great vendors. That's been a huge success for us. Like where we get our business has been a lot of vendor or former client, friend, or family referral. But one of the things that our business has is a relationship with local venues in which we provide exclusively their planning or coordination for their venue. And that has allowed us to create a base level of weddings each year that either Schuyler and I will plan and then our teammates will coordinate, or we may plan and execute. So in addition to Schuyler doing a wonderful Boonesboro backyard wedding, she may also be planning for a Glass Hill wedding, or I may be doing something over at Sierra Vista while also planning at Marsalia and the Virginian. And so we've been able to create a base that allows Schuyler and I to get paid, but also for us to bring on additional coordinators and assistants and planners in our area to be a part of our team and help execute those weddings as well. So we could not do it without them. They're 100% amazing.
Well, and coming back to how you guys charge, I think one thing that is really powerful about the idea of, okay, well, here's the package, it's a fixed fee, that's how it goes, is your clients know, obviously they're going to trust you anyway, but my point is they know that there's no scratch in the game for you to have the flowers be more or less expensive or this or whatever. Right. So there's
correct. We don't currently operate in a
percentage base.
Correct. Right. Yeah. And when we refer a vendor or they refer us, it is strictly because the work is exceptional and not because we're going to get any type of kickback or anything like that. And, to each their own and how they do it. It's just that this has been our success
for us.
Is linking up with venues and creating a stability for them and them knowing that their clients are in good hands as well.
Well, and for the folks out there who are business owners, I think the power of that model, when you think about it internally to your business, is if you've got a fixed package, if you want to call it that, but that's a set of processes, a system, and a scope, right? And you know how much effort goes into that, and you price that out, and now the client has absolute, okay, this is what that cost is. It's not going to go up or down. Unless the scope changes. By the way, Schuyler, I think we'd like the wedding to take 9 days and be in Bora Bora. Well, it's going to be a little more expensive. But I'm happy to fly to Bora Bora. But the other thing about that is it allows you to find vendor partners like you have and really work on, when you have a package and you offer that to people at a fixed price and you repeat that process again and again, even if there's customization, creating a network of partners like you have allows you really over time to increase your profitability even while charging the same amount of money. And I think as a business owner, that's a really powerful concept that people would do well to remember, right? There's a lot to be said for taking things. Yeah, go ahead.
We would never be where we are without the vendors we work with, to be frank. In addition to, their relationships and passing on clients to us, we also have a relationship that we can work ideas off of them. We can work design ideas. We can work, conceptual concepts off of them, logistics. There are many times where not only do I send Katie a timeline to analyze the life out of it, but I also send it to the photographer and videographer because we need that relationship. I want everyone to succeed on wedding day. And it's important to me that I set our vendors up for success because that's kind of a wedding planner's job, right? Part of it is setting everybody up for success. And the last thing you want to do is work with vendors that you don't know what they need to succeed. And so we are able to, one, know what they need to succeed, but also it works vice versa as well.
Yeah.
And it creates the system with them is great too. I'll get an email on a Tuesday that's like, I didn't get the docs yesterday, and you always send them 2 weeks out. Over the years, they know exactly what day the documents will go out, and they know to look for it. And it allows them to relax as well. They know, a little party is coordinating this one. Great. They've got this. We have photographers who are like, that timeline's fine. I know you know how much I like to shoot. And, so just getting to work with them over the years only helps enhance everyone's experience, including the client.
And it's sort of a safety measure for both of you, right? If you don't get the documents in on time, someone will call you on a Wednesday and ask if you've fallen down a well, right? They're like, do I need to send emergency services to find you both?
Are you sick? What's going on?
Trust me, we would never be missing very long. Someone will come find us.
True.
There you go. So this is a question I am very much looking forward to never having to ask ever again after 2021. But that is, you're in the event space. The last year has got to have been brutal. And for you and for all of the people in your network. So, first off, congratulations. You're still standing. I mean, a lot of people aren't.
Right.
So that's a
We high
real,
five daily.
yeah. I mean, that's a big deal. I've owned a business for over 20 years. This will be my this is my third full-on recession and my fourth kind of recession. There was a mini one there in the late 90s. But that's tough stuff to do, and anybody who comes through it, I think, deserves a lot of respect. So what, tell us about what the last year was like and how you all got through it and what you did.
Oh, a lot of powwows between the two of us and our team. A lot of patience, a lot of communication, a lot of spreadsheets,
Right.
A lot of long, heartfelt conversations with our clients and with vendors, who are, frustrated to have to postpone all these weddings and not know where their financials lie. And I'm the one who has to tell them that another client wants to postpone.
Right.
And so, it, again, a lot of conversations and relationships and, deep diving into that, I think has been emotional through 2020 and on top of it all.
We're used to navigating situations. We've just never had to navigate a situation. You're still talking them through something. We just didn't have previous experience. And we had owned West Manor during the 07-08 recession, but this was so different.
Right.
You were still able to execute your wedding. So what I saw there was clients who were coming to me with lower budgets. Mom and dad no longer have $30,000 to give me. They've got 15, 20 to give me. What do I do with that? And in this scenario, yes, we are seeing an impact on our parents' financials or, the paying parties' financials. It's not always parents anymore, but it was difficulty in actually not being able to conduct the event that was completely new for us, that was not grounded in the 20 years that I've been in the wedding industry, something that we had ever navigated. So you're navigating this as a professional with your clients who are looking at you like, everything. And you're over here like, I've never done this. And you're dealing with vendors who are emotional and drained. And, we're all going through this together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's brutal.
And prior to 2020, we always said like weather is one of the few things that we can't control.
Yeah.
And 2020 threw that statement upside down.
That'll teach you.
No, yeah. Can't say that anymore.
Oh my gosh. Well, and
go ahead.
Go ahead. What were you saying? Yeah.
Go ahead. You're good.
Oh, I was going to say, and just to clarify for people, Virginia, I think like many states, but I know Virginia pretty well. We've got some friends who were due to they had a wedding planned in a few weeks and their venue canceled on them 2 months ago or maybe a month ago. And, there's been a lot of uncertainty and variation as the governor in Virginia has sort of made and then changed and then remade and then rechanged, rules on gatherings and what those are going to look like. And I think, to be in the position that you are with these events that are planned so far out, to have that level of just uncertainty is just got to be, it's crazy making, right? I mean, you're just kind of.
I think that was one of the hardest parts of last year as we were becoming acclimated was as people who plan, not knowing if you were going to wake up on a Tuesday and the governor was going to tell you that wedding you've been planning for 18 months
for this weekend,
Saturday, isn't going to be able to happen. And the fact that at that point, florals had been ordered, food has been ordered, like this train is in motion, and getting that hard no was something that was really different for us to navigate. And some of our clients chose to cancel, majority of them chose to reschedule, which we were so thankful for. And then we did have a small handful that decided to really cut down that list, go with the governor's recommended social gathering amount, and we created some magical weddings with amazing detail, big budgets with small guests. And we just continue to work with it like any and every scenario that gets thrown at us on event day.
We did have maybe like 4 to 6 weeks in the fall that we were able to, a lot of our spring had postponed into the fall. And if you had seen our fall schedule Excel document, was bananas. It was like a year
of weddings
events
in
3
9
months.
weeks.
You know what I mean? It was crazy. But you know, we were able to do a maybe a little bit of fall on a larger, a normal-ish scale,
Sure.
with masks and safely, of course, but I mean, like, not 10 people.
Right.
And so, you know, we were thankful for that. But I think, you know, it's a case by case scenario. And that was the thing. You can't look at this on a large scale because every bride is different. Every venue is different. Some are inside, some are outside, some
Right.
you're able to spread out, some you're not, you know, so it's really a case by case scenario in which we had to really take 115 weddings and look at it one by one by one.
Right. Wow. Well, I think, you know, we definitely have a sense that things are getting better. I mean, right, obviously, and you know, the vaccines are making their way through the population. What are you guys excited about for 2021? I mean, I think people are kind of sort of getting some hope again, and thinking, oh my gosh, you know, we can start doing stuff. So what do you guys have on your radar for this year, in addition to just getting back to normal?
Not being asked what the COVID policies are.
Attending an event without a mask. You know, we're always happy if we end a year of weddings in which our clients were happy and everything went off, you know, with minimal hitches and we were able to navigate it. And that's still always our end goal. And honestly, at the end of this year, if we've got happy clients and vendors still in business, no one's, you know, drove themselves to drink every night, I think we're in a good place. So again, just happy clients. I think for us, we really 100% are working hard to see these weddings through and make this happen for our couples. I think that's been a big focus for us, is just keeping our eye on the prize and making it happen. Because you feel the energy in the air of, okay, the cases are going down, the vaccines are going up, the availability for vaccines is increasing. And with that comes that renewed hope of, let's get back to having some parties and seeing people dance and have a good time.
Yeah, I have a feeling you guys are not going to have time to go on anyone's podcast once Virginia's fall weather starts. I mean, y'all are going to do a year and a half worth of weddings in 3 months, I think, this year. That's great.
Looking that way again.
I hope so.
There you go.
So. We're here for it.
I hear you. Well, I tell you, so we have 2 questions. Everything is just warm up for these 2 really life-shattering, altering, amazing questions that we ask everybody. As I said, so yeah, last week we had our first 2 business owners on. We've got it again. I'm excited. What I told them last week was they could only have one answer between them. And then they just ignored me and each answered. So I'm not even going to try, you know, I'm not even going to try. So we're just going to let this discussion go where it goes. If somebody was starting out in business, and I think I love having your perspective from the planning space, because there are so many moving parts that are important, and the logistics are important, and what you do matters, but relationships are so important for what you all do. And I think even more so than in a lot of businesses where you have these relationships with external other businesses, you know. And so I'd love to hear your perspective on this. If you had somebody, you know, a young person or not, whoever, whatever age, who was starting a business for the first time, regardless of what kind of business they were going to start, what one piece of advice would you give them?
I think this kind of comes in a multifaceted way, but having solid mentors is certainly a top suggestion of mine, and a solid support system, you know. I think, but that kind of comes hand in hand, right? I started my career working, well, other than like high school working jobs, but I started my career working underneath my aunt, who's a contracted caterer and owns a woman-owned business called Meriwether Godsey. And she's been an incredible mentor of mine, but also over the years introduced me to other people that have been bosses of mine, have been coworkers of mine, and being able to go to them in times of stress, of need, of unknowns, and being able to just talk about things and kind of hash things out. And also, I think having a business partner that is a mentor and a friend of yours, you know, has a lot of value. And I know that a lot of people put business partners in this like, oh, that's that's kind of scary, right?
Right, sure.
And not that I think that you shouldn't be skeptical of who you go into business with, but luckily Katie and I were able to have the opportunity to work together before we started our business together.
Yeah.
And so we knew each other well enough to know that, like, Katie knows I'm blunt and I'm going to be upfront about things. And I know that she needs time to process things. You know what I mean? And like, we know each other well enough to know what works and what doesn't. But having mentors and a solid support system, I mean, my husband, my parents who watch my kids on endless weekends, my babysitters, my friends, you know, the first few years in business, it's rare that you make much money. I hate to say that because it was what it was.
Yep.
And having a husband that, you know, realizes that and kind of picks up when he needs to, and we team it out, it makes a huge difference in going into starting your own business and having, and it doesn't have to be a husband. It doesn't have to be your family. It can be your friends. It can be the mentors.
Sure.
And so that's kind of one thing that I think I would tell young people starting out is, you know, make sure that you know your tribe.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. Yeah. I think for me, in addition to those things, because that's absolutely 100% what I would say and agree with as well. If I was piggybacking that, I would encourage those who might be similar to myself is to watch comparison. We once heard this great quote, comparison is the thief of joy. And it really is. It really is. And it can be very easy to look at someone else's success and not know what it took for them to grow and sprout. You know, how much sunlight, how much rain, how many tears, how much fertilizer, you know, how much went into that growth. And I find even today, 20 years in, if I find someone is starting to steal my joy because I love where we're at, I love where we're going, I, you know, feel confident and comfortable in our experience and our path. But if something starts to make me question that, I do at this point know, oh, watch that comparison, Katie. And maybe I shouldn't follow that person on social media if I'm constantly comparing my successes or my joy to what I perceive their successes and joys to be. Now, if they're inspiring me, fantastic. But I have certainly had people that I'm looking over my shoulder and found that that was just mentally unhealthy for me to do. Yeah. So watch that comparison. And then for Schuyler and I, anyone who is a creative in this wedding industry might be exposed to this group called the Rising Tide Society, but they have a motto of community over competition. And I remember the first time we heard that, it was like a light bulb went off, because we do try to stay very focused in the positive. Okay. We have a stressful job. We have constantly people, you know, coming at us, asking questions. They're anxious. We're here to relieve that anxiety and stress. Is what we do. But in doing so, it could easily kind of overwhelm you some days. And so we try to stay positive. But in doing so and watching that comparison, if you're constantly focused on just your community and not competing with them, being happy for that other planner's success, being happy if that other caterer landed the gig, knowing that there's enough to go around, I think has really allowed us to grow our vendor connections. And I mean, we love the other fellow coordinators and planners in our area. We are not in competition with them. If they get if I can't do a wedding, if I'm not the right fit for them, I'm happy to pass them on and give, you know, these other coordinators an opportunity to work with great brides. So those are some.
Well, and I think, you know, one thing that's so true on the mentoring side is I don't know I think I literally don't know a single business owner who is not very generous with her time and experience for people who are just starting out. And I have this habit, you know, I'll be out back when we used to go out and do things.
The good old days.
Long ago when they'd invented wood. But you know, I would be out somewhere and you'd end up talking to somebody and I'm thinking about doing this. I give them my business card and say, hey, call me. And my wife would stop them and say, look, he says this to probably 200 people a year and nobody ever calls him. And,
take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of focusing on mentorship and people who have been down some part of the road you want to walk down and form those relationships. I mean, as long as you're not just taking, and you're there to provide some value, I think a lot of people are very generous with their time. And that also comes into this notion of community. There's, I love the idea of not comparing yourself, right? Especially because in your space, on social media, good gravy. I mean, it's just, it's revolting, right? I mean, you just kind of go, oh, I'll never, how did they do that? Oh, I'm terrible. And I think that's really powerful to say, well, here's what I set out to do. There's a great, Byron Katie has this thing. There's 3 kinds of business in the world: your business, my business, and God's business. And why I would concentrate on your business or God's business, I don't know. I'll just worry about mine. And I think that speaks to that whole idea that says if you're spending time comparing yourself to somebody else's work, you're not working on your own stuff.
Bingo.
And it just makes you feel shitty. I mean, right? You're like, I'm going to go scroll Instagram for an hour and get depressed. Whoever does, I mean, who sits down and that's their aim, right? Crazy. Yeah. Well, all right. So now for all the marbles, this is it. You've been preparing for this at least for the last 45 minutes, maybe for years. We don't know. If you could have a meal, and I am going to make you both choose one person for this. If you could have a meal with just one. If you could have a meal with any living public figure, who would that be? What would you talk about? And what would the meal be?
So because we're in this industry that we're in, when you say public figure, that's kind of vague, right? And so we would probably choose wedding planners and designers, right?
That we look up to.
That's kind of who inspires me when I go on Instagram and I follow things on, all the social medias or whatever. Right. It tends to be other inspirational wedding planners and designers.
Agreed.
And, someone that kind of hits close to home for us is Lynn Easton.
Oh, yeah.
She, owns Pippin Hill. She owns venues, and on the East Coast. But is a wedding planner that also does a lot of from scratch events. Mm-hmm. And, we go to Pippin Hill often. We've done weddings there and, so it feels close to home, but still far enough away that, that she still seems like she's on a pedestal kind of thing,
Right.
And so, her would love the opportunity to just pick her brain and see where she was and where she is now and what got her there. And, the advice that she has and those kinds of things is always fun to listen to. So that's probably one of time.
Yeah, no, we really, really look up to her as someone in our industry. I also am a fan of I call them the Mindys, but they're 2 separate women. So Mindy Weiss is a very famous event planner in the Los Angeles area, does, every Kardashian and Jenner's parties. And it's just absolutely amazing. I would enjoy a meal with her just to pick her brain about those. But there is another designer, Mindy Rice, who is just insanely talented. And we've seen Lynn Easton partner up with Mindy Rice and what amazing creations they create. So I think if we were at a joint lunch together and the 2 of them were there, it would be
there you go.
A dream come true. And I follow a very famous chef called Peter Callahan. Okay. And I mean, just to look at his Instagram thread is to get hungry. I mean, it's both delicious, but beautiful in its presentation. And I think it maybe, garners back to my old catering days, but food presentation for me just is like the bee's knees. I just love when something comes out in a tiny miniature version or a small pan or is just presented really lovely. And I think that he does a great job. And then those 2 women specifically do nothing but create beautifully, wonderfully detailed weddings.
So what I'm hearing is you would dodge the question and do a group lunch and have Peter Callahan.
Yes, we would.
Okay, that's fair. We'll call that creative problem solving. There we go.
So what are you doing for lunch? Because I'm having lunch with Lenny, and you have to be there.
I love it. So now, where is Peter Callahan based out of?
Oh, I believe he's in the California area as well, but I'm pretty sure he has traveled.
Okay.
All over.
So you might have to fly to LA for this.
We've done it once before for a wedding. I would do it again for both.
You could force yourself. I like it. I love it. Yeah, I think those questions are really good, and we get a lot of different answers to that. And obviously some people are very interested. Oh, I want to pick the brain of somebody like Elon Musk, who's this very public visionary, and so on and so forth.
Would not turn that down either.
Well, but I love
long list. List of people. But
the idea, though, that I think this is so important, to find people in your space, your skill set, your craft, who you respect, and who inspire you. I think it's surprising, again, how accessible some of those people can be, and accessible in two ways. One, I mean, I'm not sure what would be required in the universe for me to own a business like Amazon. And I mean, I could maybe own a business a millionth the size of Amazon and be successful. Maybe if I just sold like rakes or something, I could manage that. But to look at somebody who's, a little further down the road for you, but aspirational, where you could be like, hey, if I could be that person in 10 years. I think that's hugely important, and having those people as, I guess, dare I say it, people who, hey man, if I could be a little better and grow a little more, they would become my mentor, right? To get on their radar. I love that idea, and I think it's important, and a lot of people don't think of it, right? They don't think, oh wow,
Well, I mean, we certainly. No, you would love to sit down with a Bezos or a Elon Musk or some Google exec. But at the end of the day, the greatest impact to us and our clients would be a meal with someone that would continue to inspire us. And I think that's kind of who Schuyler and I are as people. A lot of our passion just comes from doing what we do. My husband's always like, you need a hobby. And I'm like, this is like, it is both what I enjoy to do. And when I have free time, I'm like, finding ways to do something else in the wedding. So, for us, that would be probably just as exciting as sitting down with, now our girl Kirby over here would sit down with Elon Musk in a heartbeat. She would disagree with us, but like she slides into the room and is like, did someone just say Elon Musk?
Oh,
but for us, it would mean so much more to see someone who is insanely successful in our industry, and picking their brain about it. So
I love it. Well, on that, I want to respect your time. We're coming up on an hour. Again, our guests today have been Katie Lester and Schuyler Somers of A Little Party Events. You can find them at alittlepartyevents.com, spelled just like it sounds. And you guys are on Facebook and Instagram as well. What are you at? A Little Party Events, I assume, on both platforms? Or
Little Party Events.
Yeah, and so check them out. Again, you guys obviously work everywhere, all over, and hopefully we'll be doing a heck of a lot of work coming up in the next few months as the country reopens. Congrats again for making it through. That's a huge achievement. You guys deserve a lot of praise for that, because it's not easy. And again, thank you so much. Hang out a little bit. We're going to chit chat after we're done, but that's it for the episode, folks. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. You can find contact information about our guest in the show notes for this episode. This has been the How I Make Money podcast by Brand Distillers. To learn more, visit branddistillers.com.